Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Art of Being a Woman. I'm your host, Courtney. Today's topic is all about unconditional self love and what that means. Before we get into the 4 steps, I want to emphasize that self love isn't a destination, it is a journey that we will be on our whole lives. This week's topic is very important to me and sacred to me because this is something that was really challenging for me for most of my life. And I'm not sure where it stemmed from, but what matters is that I became aware of it. And it's funny because I really only became aware of the fact that I was lacking in self love through relationships with other people. Whenever I felt underappreciated and disrespected and just unhappy in relationships with the people that I dated in the past, I realized it had nothing to do with them. It had to do with me and what I was accepting. And I realized that regardless of the relationship that I would be in, I would sort of lose myself in the relationship. I would be so focused on them loving me that I didn't really worry about loving myself at all. I figured that is how life worked. If I could get someone to love me forever, they could do all of the loving for me, and I really wouldn't have to work on focusing on myself. And I know I'm not alone in that. I've seen that with my own eyes with other people that I've crossed paths with, and it happens. I feel like it has a lot to do with the steps that we're going to get into today. So get comfortable. Now, the 4 steps are as follows. We have divorcing the fairy tale, learning to sit with yourself, stop outsourcing your happiness, and build a life that reflects your worth. Now, let's get right in. Step 1, divorcing the fairy tale. I learned to fully love myself unconditionally through relationships with other people. And the reason why I think that happened is because since we're young, we're sort of pushed into believing the fairy tale about how the princess is a damsel in distress and she's waiting one day to be rescued by her Prince Charming, her knight in shining armor. And I love that. I love romance movies. I'm a lover girl. But if we think that we're going to meet a great guy and then it'll click, we'll fully love ourselves because he loves us, we're just going to naturally love ourselves the way that he loves us. That is really not true. And we know this by looking at celebrities. There are so many people that love big celebrities and they don't love themselves still. So it doesn't really matter who loves you, how many people love you. If you don't feel love, then that means you probably do not know how to love yourself unconditionally. And it could be hard to admit that. I don't think people like to admit that they don't love themselves. People can say that they love certain things about themselves, whether they love that they work hard, they love that they're responsible, but do they love the parts of themselves that they're not applauded for, the things that don't end up benefiting other people? And it took me a while to realize that being in a relationship with someone that loves me does not make me automatically love myself. And that was a hard pill to swallow. And although it's a hard pill to swallow, it's very liberating once you realize that you don't need other people to feel love for yourself. You don't need other people to feel whole, to feel good enough, to feel special, to feel magical. And once you realize that, and once you tap into all the love that you have within your heart that's just waiting to be accessed by you, your life will change for the better. You will be happier. You will feel excited to wake up and to live your life. And when you actually meet amazing people that love you, you'll feel deserving of it and you'll feel like it makes perfect sense that you're with someone that loves you so much because you love you so much. And divorcing the fairy tale is also about releasing external validation, because if we even get into a relationship with someone because of how they make us feel, that's already a slippery slope. And it sounds strange because wouldn't it be normal to be with someone that makes us feel good? And yeah, obviously we would want to be around someone that makes us feel good. but we still need to feel just as good when they're not around. And that's something that I feel like is not encouraged enough in society, or at least for women. And I really want to change that because once you learn how to make yourself feel so happy and loved on your own, your energy and your aura is magnetic. It can be comforting to know that one day we're going to meet someone that sees all the amazing qualities within ourselves and make it a little bit easier for us to love ourselves. Because if someone so amazing loves us, then obviously, why wouldn't we love ourselves? But all it's doing is putting the ability to love yourself and to feel love into someone else's hands. It's not fair to tell yourself that you don't feel loved until someone else is going to come into your life and do the loving for you. So I really want you to challenge the idea that love and romance and a soulmate is going to change the way that you feel about you. Only you can do that. Once you learn to divorce the fairy tale, you allow yourself to create a life where you feel so complete on your own, and anything else outside of you is a complete bonus to your happiness. I want to also mention that sometimes we can think that we don't have this love for ourselves naturally. Maybe we think that we haven't loved ourselves fully in a long time since we were kids because life happens and people can tell us things about ourselves and it can get to us. And I get that. If you are able to be a lover girl, that means you have so much love in your heart that you're waiting to give to someone else. That's basically what it means to be a lover girl. You love to love, right? But here's the catch. You love to love other people. Maybe it's easier for you, if you're a lover girl, to love others more than you love yourself. And it happens. The good thing about being a lover girl is if you love to love others so much, you have all that love within you. You just want to give it away. So instead of you giving it away, you need to turn all of that inwards. And what does that mean? The same way that you would gush and obsess and just romanticize every single thing about someone else, you have the ability to do it all for yourself, because all of that emotion that you have ready to give to an ideal partner, give it to yourself, especially in the meantime if you're single. Even if you're not single, the moments when you're not together, all the love that you usually give to them when they're around, give it back to yourself. Recharge yourself. Step 2, we have learn to sit with yourself. This is honestly one of my favorite steps of all time, of every post I've ever made, because I used to not like to sit with myself. Especially when I was really young, I had a nice group of friends and we always had plans. So I was never really alone in my own thoughts, ever. I remember one time I probably got into a fight with one of my friends, and by fight I just mean like we had a disagreement and we were upset at each other, not a physical fight. I just felt the need to say that because people fight differently. But I remember because I was so used to speaking out my thoughts and my feelings with my friends, whenever I would get in an argument with them, I didn't know who to speak to about those arguments. And I didn't want to tell my family because it was personal, and I knew that I wanted my friends and my family to remain close, so I never wanted to sabotage how they would see each other. And so I remember I decided to journal because who else am I going to tell my problems to and how am I going to solve them? And so from a pretty young age, since high school, I would journal occasionally. And I wasn't consistent with it, but whenever something felt overwhelming or I just was so indecisive, I didn't know what to do, I would write and I would talk things out with myself until I reached this clarity and I understood my thoughts, and I didn't realize what I was doing, but I was truly sitting with myself. I sat down and it brought so much clarity to me and comfort, and I felt so supported. It also made me realize that I don't really have many moments like this where I sit and I talk to myself and I get clarity. I'm usually on autopilot. I'm usually busy with friends, with family, with distractions, whether I wake up and I'm on my phone right away. That's just how life was at the time. And so it didn't always stick because if I was in a romantic relationship, which is really my point from number one, I really let go of myself and loving myself, and I focused on pouring into someone else so that when I was in a relationship, I never had alone time. I never sat with myself. And so I kind of wasn't aware of what I was feeling and thinking so much because I allowed my feelings and thoughts to be focused on other people that loved me rather than loving myself. And so anytime I had a moment of quiet, whether the people around me were busy or we were just not together for whatever reason, that's when I would sit with myself and I would feel this complete peace and acceptance of myself. And I knew when I was journaling and sitting with myself that it doesn't matter how I feel, it doesn't matter what I'm thinking, what I'm doing. I belong. I belong with myself. And it was very healing. Allow your inner self to connect with you because your inner self is with you at all times of the day, even if we don't realize. Those little voices in our head, they're there all day long. We're just consuming social media, we're on our phone, we're having conversations with other people. So it minds its business and it stays quiet behind the scenes. Once you sit with yourself, that voice gets louder. It comes to the forefront of your mind and it starts to talk to you. And so that might sound different, but I advise you to try it. There's nothing bad that could come out of sitting with yourself. And the thoughts that surface might be uncomfortable at first. I remember when I first decided to meditate and journal, it was strange and I wanted to make sure I was doing it right. But there is no right way to meditate, there's no right way to journal. You just do it. You just freestyle it because it's you and there's no rules to connecting with yourself. So set a timer for 10 minutes, go to a quiet room, close your eyes, and just allow yourself to relax and let your mind wander and just observe your thoughts. Or if you're more of an action oriented person, then start free writing and don't worry about not knowing what to talk about. Just start writing. Start by writing about your day from the second you woke up. Step number three, we have stop outsourcing your happiness. This ties into divorcing the fairy tale, but it's a little bit different. Because even when we're in a relationship, even when life is going great, even when we have so many people cheering us on and we have many people in our lives making us happy, we still have to only rely on ourselves to make us happy. And it's because true happiness does not come from anything outside of us, because we're truly spiritual beings. And so the things outside of us, whether it's like a really nice house, a really nice car, really nice clothes, really nice vacations, it's never going to create long lasting happiness, or shall I say, a happiness that uplifts us and elevates us, because they're all distractions from fulfillment and from purpose. Because it's nobody's purpose in life to have a nice car, have a nice house, have nice clothes, you name it. It's not the point of living. It's not going to lead to fulfillment. And true happiness comes from inner fulfillment. And so when we allow external achievements such as career success, material possessions, relationships to determine our happiness, that becomes very tricky because the second that those things leave us in life, and they do, everything that goes up must come down. Life is working in a cycle at all times, and it teaches us not to rely on anything outside of ourselves for happiness and for fulfillment. And this is not to say that you shouldn't be happy when you're in a relationship and when things outside of you go right and when you can treat yourself to really nice things. Those are all amazing. But don't allow that to be the reason why you're happy, because there will be a time in life when those things are not accessible to you. And a lot of times, God purposely will remove certain things from our lives to remind us, you don't need this. This is not you. You're bigger than this and you're better than this. And I'm gonna make you realize that. I'm gonna make you realize that you actually don't need the career that you think you need. You don't need to spend a lot of money on clothing to feel accomplished. And we might fight it. We might obsess over it, the next big achievement outside of ourselves, and we might chase that high for a long time until we get to a point where maybe we're able to accumulate all these things. We reach the milestones in the career. We reach the point where we have so much money that we buy ourselves everything we want. But we realize, now what? Because we thought that if we chased things, literal material items and physical things outside of our body, then we would be happy. And that's the biggest trap. The point is, be happy now. Be happy on your journey to where it is that you want to go. And be happy even if it wanted to leave. Be happy even if it didn't work out. When we stop relying on things outside of ourselves to make us happy, we hold all the cards. We have all the power. We decide that whether or not life turns out any particular way, I'm choosing to be happy because I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud to work on myself. I am proud to love myself and honor myself and be the best person that I can possibly be. Those are real sources of happiness that nobody can take away from you. And that is true power. The way that we can work on this is by the choices that we make and the way that we think. We have to really focus on our mindset. And by focusing on feeling fulfillment from the internal work that we do, we allow ourselves to build a real foundation of joy. And that doesn't mean that if something sad happens in life, whether a loss or just an unfortunate circumstance, that doesn't mean that we can't be upset. Of course, we can be upset, but we still should have that foundation of happiness, happiness to be ourselves, happiness to have the wisdom that we have through our experiences. And whenever life happens in a way that we didn't expect, we have an easier time building ourselves back up. Because if this foundation of happiness is so shaky, then one inconvenience will lead you in a spiral of the victim mentality. And that is not somewhere you want to go because your thoughts create your reality. And if you are thinking that you are a victim, then the world will show you more proof that you're a victim. And I don't want that for you. I know you don't want that for you. And so focus on creating that solid base of happiness within and know that you don't need anything outside of you to build it. And you can start right now. You can work on it from the second you wake up to the second you go to bed. And you will notice a shift immediately. Before we move on to the last step, I do want to add when you start working on your mindset and you start challenging negative thoughts and you start replacing old beliefs with more positive beliefs, you might realize that as you're doing that, things outside of you are going to challenge you to be negative. And what do I mean by that? Let's say you're working on becoming more happy within, and you wake up in the morning, you're in a great mood, everything is going very well, and then you leave your house, and let's say you're taking a bus to work, and the bus driver has an attitude, and you're having a great day, so you don't know why the bus driver is having an attitude, and it bothers you that they have an attitude. That's a test. That's a test to show you that you don't need the bus driver to be in a good mood for you to be in a good mood because your happiness comes from within. It doesn't come from the fact that everyone else is all nice and smiley saying good morning to you. And that's just an example, but life is funny like that. And I've noticed that in my own life when I am working on something in my life specifically, life will give me that specific test to see if I've really learned my lesson and understood the message behind what I'm experiencing. And I just don't want anyone to get discouraged. It just means that it's giving you an opportunity to prove yourself, to prove that you've grown and that you've evolved. And once we show up as someone that has grown and evolved, we end up becoming closer to all the things that we want from life, all the dreams, all the hopes, all the desires that we can ever have. Now, step 4. Last step, we have build a life that reflects your worth. Our external world mirrors our internal beliefs. We have to be very conscious of the thoughts that we have and the feelings that we carry within because they really end up reflecting back to us in the real world. And that can sound very strange, and maybe some people will listen to this and not believe that. But I really challenge you to be aware of your thoughts and feelings first and foremost. For example, let's say you had a rough start to your day. You're in a bad mood. I guarantee you, when you leave your house, there's going to be more reasons for you to be in a bad mood. And it can really be out of your control whether, like I mentioned, you go on the bus driver has an attitude and is being rude to you. Again, if we're already in a bad mood, we're gonna feel like, wow, you see, this is what I'm talking about. People are just so nasty sometimes. And the day will just progress in that sort of fashion. It's going to keep supporting exactly how you feel and how you think. If we know this, we can reverse psychology it and we can decide, I'm choosing to be happy regardless of how anybody wants to act or speak to me, regardless if anything gets in my way to disrupt my routine or what I expect. Easier said than done, I completely understand. But baby steps. Just because it's hard doesn't mean you can't do it, number one. And number two, don't strive for perfection right away. You're allowed to get irritated. You're allowed to have a moment where you just don't want to be happy for a second, but just know that you want to get out of that feeling of not wanting to be happy sooner rather than later because you're going to create more negativity around you, and you don't want that. Now, not only do we want to work on our internal self, we also want to look at our surroundings. If we are around people that are feeding negativity into our lives, and this can be people that are complainers, people that you're just around them and you don't feel like you can fully be yourself. It really doesn't have to be so extreme or negative. It's just that you don't feel like you two click. That is something that also needs to be addressed. Because the external world is a reflection of our internal world, if we are in relationships with people that are complainers, that are negative, that are rude, fill in the blank, that means internally we might be doing that to ourselves. Internally, we might complain a lot to ourselves. Internally, we might be really negative to ourselves. Internally, we might reject parts of ourselves, and so we tolerate it from the people around us. So if you ever feel like you're not quite sure what it is that you're feeling within, but you just know that the life that you're living is chaotic or that you're attracting people that you don't like, that could be the reason why. And that doesn't mean that you should start blaming yourself for everything. It just means that you need to be aware. And now that you're aware that you're responsible for the life that you live, you can change it with taking one small action in the right direction. Sometimes we settle in the relationships in our lives because we're afraid to change. We're afraid to be alone. And perhaps that's because we've lived surviving off of other people validating us and loving us so much that we didn't really work on doing it ourselves. And so we can cling to these relationships and be scared to have something end because we think that if we lose someone, we lose love in our life and we lose happiness in our life. But the real truth is, you have all of that within you. You just have to give it to yourself instead of outsourcing it all the time and expecting people to pay you back and return the favor. And that's a power move. It's powerful to know that you can choose who you surround yourself with, and you can choose what you think about, and you can choose how you want to feel about each and every situation. The first step is to become aware, and we must take responsibility, accountability, and action. So if you look at your life and you notice that there is something that is just stunting your growth and your happiness, consider removing it. But also consider working on that part within yourself. Work on the part of you that accepted something that was stunting your growth, and take accountability and responsibility for that. When we make choices that honor our value, and that's not just external, that's internal as well. If we make a choice that we're not going to entertain thoughts and feelings that bring us down and make us upset and make us feel like a victim, then we allow the world to show us more situations where we're not a victim, actually. And things are pretty positive. You will have more good days than bad days if you truly start working on that belief within yourself that you could have a good day every single day if you really wanted to. And it can be intimidating to know that it's all in your hands and that if you want to fix it, you could. But don't let that intimidate you. Let that empower you and let that remind you that at any moment in time, if you decide that enough is enough and that you want a good life and you want a happy life filled with love and you want to feel complete and you don't want to feel like you're waiting for something outside of you to make you happy, then start loving yourself unconditionally every single day, and your life will change for the better sooner than you think. I hope that this episode brought value to you, and I would love to hear your thoughts and feelings in the comments. I truly believe that learning to love myself unconditionally is what fueled me to start this creative project of podcasting and creative writing on Instagram. And so I really encourage you to dedicate a little bit of time every day to love yourself more and more because you will unlock so many parts of your heart and your soul. You would be surprised what you're capable of doing and what your purpose is in life. And so, with that, have a great week. I love you all. Until next time, bye for now.